What happens when a simple family visit turns into a tragedy no one could have predicted? Could a single argument, a single decision, change everything in an instant? She had flown thousands of miles to see her family. Lucy Harrison, only 23, arrived in Texas from her home in Warrington, England, with her boyfriend, Sam Littler, who had accompanied her from the UK. She came to visit her father, Chris Harrison. Could a visit meant to be ordinary become the scene of a tragedy? Could a single day, a single decision, transform everything? Lucy was not just anyone. She worked as a fashion buyer for a major UK brand. She traveled often, had a wide circle of friends, and was remembered as someone bright, independent, and adventurous. How does someone so full of life suddenly find themselves in a situation with irreversible consequences? Could independence and confidence ever make ordinary family dynamics feel more fragile than they appear? Sam was part of her life, present for this visit that was supposed to be a break, a chance to reconnect. But how does being present during a life-altering event shape the memory of it? How close can someone be to tragedy without having the power to prevent it? Lucy arrived in Prosper, Texas, ready to see her father. She expected a reunion, perhaps a conversation about her life in the UK, her work, her travels, and her experiences. Could such expectations make the reality of conflict feel even more shocking? Could a day meant for connection suddenly spiral beyond anyone's anticipation? Reports indicate that Lucy and her father had an argument that day, touching on politics, leadership, and guns. She reportedly opposed her father owning a firearm, especially around younger siblings. Reports suggest the conversation grew tense and left her upset running upstairs. Could disagreements over ideology and safety ever escalate into irreversible consequences? Could the combination of deeply held beliefs and ordinary human emotion create invisible tension, unnoticed until it erupts? Now about the gun. Chris Harrison had owned a Glock 9mm for several years. He had purchased it for what he described as a sense of security for his family. He had never fired it, and there was no public record of him threatening anyone with it. But there was another layer to that day. Chris later acknowledged that he had struggled with alcohol in the past. He told the inquest that he had been sober for a significant period before relapsing that day. He admitted to drinking approximately 500 milliliters of white wine, describing it as a brief lapse brought on by emotion about Lucy preparing to leave. Officers at the scene reported smelling alcohol on his breath, and CCTV footage showed he had purchased wine shortly before the incident. Could the presence of firearm, alcohol, and heightened emotion create the perfect conditions for a moment no one could anticipate? Could one decision in a split second have fatal consequences? They were reportedly watching a news segment on gun crime earlier that day, something millions of people see daily. Did this seep into a family dispute and amplify emotions in unforeseen ways? Later that day, as Lucy stood in the kitchen, her father took her by the hand and led her into his ground-floor bedroom to show her the gun. According to reports, the Glock was kept in a bedside cabinet. As he lifted the gun, a loud bang occurred. Lucy immediately fell, and Chris Harrison screamed for his wife. Chris later said that he did not understand what had happened. He could not recall whether his finger was on the trigger. How does one reconcile intent with outcome in a split second? Lucy's boyfriend was present in the house during the incident. Emergency services were called shortly afterward. What does it mean to witness a moment of life and death? How does one process shock, grief, and helplessness while being so close to both the victim and the circumstances that cause a tragedy? According to verified reports, a single gunshot occurred in the home. Lucy Harrison was pronounced dead at the scene. After the tragedy, the legal aftermath added another layer of tension. A Texas grand jury reviewed the evidence, but ultimately declined to indict Chris Harrison, meaning no criminal charges were brought. The coroner, however, ruled the death unlawful, describing it as reckless and negligent. This decision sparked heated debates online. Social media, comment sections, and forums were filled with outrage, confusion, and moral questioning. Could someone be legally cleared yet still face the weight of moral responsibility? How do ordinary people reconcile the law with their own sense of justice when tragedy strikes in a family home? Some argue that the law's technical distinctions, intent versus recklessness, alcohol as a factor, and accidental discharge, created a gap between legal responsibility and emotional accountability. Others debated whether prior struggles with alcohol or the father's unfamiliarity with firearms should have influenced the legal outcome. The internet buzzed with questions. Could this have been prevented? Was this truly an accident, or was the law missing something? How do we hold people accountable when love, trust, and human error collide so tragically? In the midst of online debates and legal conclusions, one thing remained clear. Lucy's life was gone, and her family, boyfriend, and community were left with questions that no ruling could fully answer. How we process a life ended too soon. What did Lucy's father feel in the moments after the shot? Shock? Disbelief? Guilt? And Lucy, what was she thinking? Did she sense danger, or did she trust the space and people around her completely? Could she have anticipated that a routine argument could escalate so tragically? How often do ordinary family conflicts carry hidden risks that only become apparent too late? And for Sam, who was present in the house during the events, though reports do not detail his actions, could he have imagined that a visit meant for reunion would end in tragedy? How does one process trauma from witnessing a fatal event when there is nothing that can be done to change the results? Lucy's life, her curiosity, courage, and energy remains in the hearts of those who knew her. Sam, who accompanied her, also carries a memory of that day. Could her story serve as a reminder of how fragile life can be? How trust, familiarity, and human error intersect in moments that none of us could fully control? Could this tragedy have been prevented if one small decision had been different? Why did Chris hold a gun when having a conversation with his daughter? How do loved ones process grief when the answers may never come? Lucy Harrison's story is a reminder that even the most familiar spaces, homes, family, and trusted relationships, can hide profound danger. It leaves us asking, what would you have done? As we remember Lucy, we are reminded to hold our loved ones a little closer, to consider safety, and to reflect on the weight of human decisions, small or large. The mystery remains and the questions linger, haunting us long after the story ends. If Lucy's story left you thinking, reflecting, or questioning, make sure you subscribe to Mayhem Unmasked. We explore the stories behind the headlines, the human psychology behind the tragedies, and the questions that linger long after the news fades. Stay with us, because the truth, the questions, and the stories are never as simple as they seem.